What's going on, Team Boosted? Welcome back to another 240Z Turbo Diesel OM606 video. This one's more interior focused, specifically the dashboard. It's funny because we weren't going to go nearly as hard as we ended up going. We were just going to do like the cap, reglue it, whatnot. We ended up doing a full restoration, partially because Speedhut hooked us up with an awesome suite of gauges, and we wanted to do those justice. So without further ado, remember to like and leave a comment, and the engagement, whatnot, helps us out. But just watch the video, enjoy. Right now we have pretty much a blank dash. It looks like absolute crap because this often happens to Datsun dashes. It's not going to look like this when we're done with it though. We're going to first do the gauge mounts, get those where we want them sitting, and then we're going to restore the dash, and then we're going to put these in for final installation. But look how it looks though. Come on guys, take this in, take it in, take it in.
Nissan.
Take it in. What is going on here? I don't even know. I mean, a lot of this was the glue that got ripped off when we ripped off the cap, but I mean, that's not. Yeah, that's the Grand Canyon.
Literally the thing trying to fall apart.
So as it sits right now, it's gonna be way different. We're excited to get started on these Speedhuts. Let's get to it. There's a difference between restoring and transforming a dash. I mean, restoring it transforms it, but in our case, we just want it to look really good. However, there are some spots that I'm going to repair. Here's a crack that pretty much goes all the way through. That's a problem because we are mounting a gauge here, and I'm gonna want this to have a little bit of structure. So I gotta finish getting off all of this sealer that was used to hold on the cap. I'm pretty much just using this little, it's like a fiberglass, like, I don't know. Takes it off real good though. I'm gonna get the rest of this off. And I'm probably gonna grind this as flat as possible and just fill it with some kind of epoxy. We'll see what we have in the shop. Nice. All right, so I put the respirator on because it smells real bad, and I'm not sure if stuff from 1973 is toxic when you grind it off, but here's what we're looking like now. I'm going to try to fill all these cracks with this. We've had a few seams in sound deadening purposes, like it's this expanding foam. It's like the manufacturer's quality one. It's really hard, and I bet it could be sanded. It expands like 4 times its original size, so that might be good. Let's check that out. Okay, so here's the product. It's 3M08458. It's rigid pillar foam, and it expands. What I've done is I've taken the die grinder, opened up all the cracks. I want this stuff to go down to where the problem is. I'm gonna fill all this, and then we're gonna, wait the amount of time that you gotta wait. I'm gonna sand it all down, and then I'm gonna see the viability of maybe just restoring this and using some body filler to get it flat, because we are flocking it, so the finish doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be smooth. So let's see what we can do. Messy, but we might be able to save this dash, which would be cool. I mean, like I said, if not, they sell these little caps that just go over it. So concerned about structure, but if we could pull off an actual restoration, that'd be cool too. So Devin and I are going to continue working on restoring the dash itself. Sam's working on mounting solutions for the Speedhut gauges. These are really nice, so we wanted to actually put some thought into how this is going to go.
The stock gauges are nice and inset. My idea there is I want to try to get that gauge to be mounted at a similar level in there, so it'll be more...
It'll be flat. Like this, when you look into it, it looks almost like a watch. Yeah. You're looking down.
Never mind the little stick down part, but like something like that. Basically making a little thing I can 3D print. I've still got a little bit of contouring and fixing to do. Effectively mimicking the stock bezel.
But to accept the modern Speedhut gauges.
Exactly, except the modern Speedhut gauges, and then I want to try and get it to accept the stock mounting solution, so it'll be a nice little easy bolt-in solution versus having to make like a crappy little bracket or like glue it into the dash or something.
So Sam's going to work on this. It's going to take quite a bit, but he's planning on getting those in the 3D printer, and it'll get cooked up, be ready for tomorrow. And that's probably when our stuff is going to be most workable. It says on the tube an hour, but we don't believe that. This stuff actually did have a cure time of an hour, which is incredible. It's very hard. And what we're going to do now is trim them down. Pretty much got a little hacksaw here, and going to get them all flat, and then we're going to sand everything, get all the old vinyl off. And then we have the fiber reinforced Bondo, which is the one you want. There is a dash specific product, but when we built the 911, I remember on the restoration part of Renless, they used the fiberglass reinforced Bondo. Some dudes have really good results. We're gonna give that a try. Now Devin's got an 80 grit block, and we're just gonna try to get it pretty much flush. The reason we use the foam is we don't want this much Bondo in the dash. This is a great filler.
It's an epoxy foam, so it also makes for like a glue, so the cracks won't continue to spread apart.
So we're gonna sand, and then what this is also gonna do is get rid of some of the loose vinyl.
Yeah, that weak, crumbly vinyl, it'll help pop that off.
Like I said, the fiberglass, it looks like baby poop is the one you want.
Yeah, yucky.
It's their glass series, right?
Yeah. It's got short strand fiberglass in it, you can see.
Whoa, it's like a fiberglass mat. This is cool. So essentially what this is gonna do is regular Bondo might crack when the dash gets hot. This, the fiberglass reinforcement prevents that.
It helps it hold up more, but we should definitely protect against overheating the dash anyway.
Did you properly ratio that, Devin?
Yeah.
You just do it until it turns mud brown.
I've mixed up enough Bondo to know the ratio.
This is different though. Yes. It's gonna take a freaking lot of this. So our dash is about as bad as a dash can get before completely crumbling to dust. Pretty much all you gotta do is drill out the holes and fill the holes with goo, and then fill them with a different kind of goo, then sand them, then put more goo on top of it. So at this point, you can consider its structural integrity back. Pretty much, I'm gonna let this dry, and then it is kind of like just like chop mat inside of Bondo. It turns into like a sheet almost. We're gonna do some block sanding once this dries, and just try to get the shape back. And then if there's any spots in the fronts of dashboards are less likely to be messed up because the sun is what ends up cracking these. They overheat and the vinyl cracks and dries out and all that stuff. So we don't have a lot of issue in the front. We just had, you know, the top, but I'm excited to see how this turns out. It's not so bad. What's cool about this chemical reaction, it's all hot, which is neat. This is drying pretty quickly. It is getting late though, and it's not quite the temperature that they recommend. So we're just gonna let this sit overnight. And one last thing to show you guys from today is Sam's pretty much done with the CAD process.
So we got the gauge modeled, front bezel and rear bezel. So basically it'll work exactly like the old setup, basically just taking a page from the book Dodson wrote, where it's gonna have this flat piece that has these two tabs that will fit to the stock style mount, and then that will bolt into a front part of the bezel right there that will fit up into the dash. And then I actually have it contoured in there where it basically, off of all the measurements of the bezel, it should contour fairly nicely to the gauge and center it well, and it'll look fairly clean.
Some content for you engineering nerds. Boom, got everything. We got two amateurs smearing Bondo all over a dash from the 70s and some 3D printed gauge stuff. It's getting pretty late. We're gonna get out of here. I mean, for you guys, this is gonna be an instant switch, but we get to go home for a little bit. Okay, so here's where it's gonna get pretty transformative. It's the next day, obviously, we got it outside, and the shit's all ready to go. Let's sand the first layer and see how close we get to a finished thing. See how many layers we're gonna need. Here we are after the first pass. You can see this is the high point, this is original. So all these low spots you can see where it kind of sunk in. So we're gonna do another skim pass, and the goal is to get this all flat and seamlessly transitioning into where it becomes the old stuff. So got some layers.
Yeah, a few, but that was to be expected. This thing was pretty messed up.
So this flat part of the dash is the most important part to be not wavy. So you notice that Devin's using a flat block and he's going in this way and this way. That pattern is going to knock down the high points, and as long as this part's super flat and it curves over to this nicely, all of this stuff could be less flat, essentially. But if you want to make something flat, sand and use a flat block, take your time and hash one way and then hash the other way. We've done plenty of body work, and this always does the trick. So at this point, we're looking pretty smooth. There's some very obvious little chunks, probably because this is fiberglass reinforced. So the smoothness isn't like inherently there. But we got this glazing putty, which is meant to fill tiny imperfections. These little chips. Looks like rock chips, really. So we're gonna hit it with this, sand off the excess, and then hit the whole dash with primer and see if there's any spots that need more repair. Okay, here we are right before flocking. Let's see if I can get better angle for y'all. Pretty smooth. Look like it good enough. Look at that. We just gotta clean it, cover it with glue.
And then cover it with fuzz.
Yes. Okay, so in this bag, looks like ash, but this is all just like little bits of fuzz. So we cover the dash with glue with a roller, and then it goes in this tube with the holes, right? And then pretty much you just trying to do that with a face. Hold on.
What do you do again?
Wait. Okay, so the fuzz goes in this tube. This tube has holes in it, and that's pretty much how it works. Yeah, that's how it works, and we'll show you the process in depth in a second. So your flock kit should come with the glue, by the way. So the actual use of flocking is originally for like race cars and rally cars. Christmas trees. What?
Flock Christmas trees. Give it fake snow texture.
Ah, yes. Well, it reduces glare, or eliminates glare, actually, from the sun. Regular vinyl dashboards can reflect the sun, and you don't want that when you're flying through the woods at 100 miles an hour. And flocking, you know, in our case, we're not going to be doing that, but it's our best chance at creating a new-looking dashboard that doesn't use the cap. Okay, so it's pretty important that this stuff gets applied very generously, according to the thing, immediately after gluing it. So Devin's gonna start. Yep. It's pretty fucking sweet. Very generously, Devin. And then after 15 minutes, we get to remove the excess. This is giving it a nice fuzzy texture. Oh, this is sweet. This says very liberally.
What we're doing.
Okay, so we may have went a little crazy, but that's That's what the can says to do. Remember, guys, we've never done this before.
It said excess. We did excess. It looks really, really, really good, though.
It does. When we dust it off, you'll be able to see, but like in person, it's looking really good. Yeah, you don't need to be great at body work because the flocking hides like pretty much everything. And these kits are like 30 bucks. Totally worth it if you ever have your dash out, you're doing like an old dash restoration. This is a great way to get a nice smooth dash and have your texture. And can't wait to put the gauges in and see how it looks. Yeah, this looks great. I know that flocking is on the more delicate side, but we don't literally need to ever touch this ever. It just looks so good.
I mean, honestly, the kits are fairly cheap too. We could reflock it sometime.
Yeah, it's super easy to take this dash out, so it's like really not even a big deal. It just looks so good. We're gonna blow off the excess from afar. I'm gonna touch it in an inconspicuous spot.
It's fairly durable.
Yeah, actually.
I was touching it a lot on that side.
It's very soft.
Whoops. I like how sparkles too.
So this is footage from our ADD, and if I mess with the polarized filter, you can see the like the glitter effect that we're talking about, kind of. Yeah, there we go. And if I change the polarization, you can see how dark it gets. It's really dark. So earlier in the video, you guys saw the 3D designs in CAD. Here's how they're coming out. Here's the 3D printer. We brought it here to do a time lapse. Show you how this works. Pretty much, it's got this spool. This is the material that the gauges are made out of. It comes in like, you know, like a spool, little rod. It goes into here, and which I'm assuming it gets melted, and then it just gets layered up until it does something like this. Layer after layer, it'll build up to the final shape. So what this is going to allow us to do is it's functioning as a pod that has the factory 240Z mounting spots. So we won't have to do any modifications to the dashboard itself. We just put the gauges that, you know, we designed these to fit the Speedhuts. We put these in the dashboard, and these are designed to fit the dashboard. So it's like a plug and play solution. The only downside, of course, is you have to spend several hours designing these pods in CAD and then wait, you know, 6 hours per gauge for the printer. They're very slow, which is why I have to do it in a time lapse. Well, the affordable ones are. This one's very slow. So this is actually going to be an 8-hour print. It's for 3 pieces. We have the time lapse going. We're hoping the battery lasts somewhere near that. But pretty much, it's just going to stack the filament, the melted filament, vertically and build the part from the bottom up. It's pretty interesting, but I wouldn't sit here and watch it for 8 hours. Sam, how much does this machine cost?
$220.
$220. So 3D printing is to the point where it's actually affordable, and this is great for prototyping or
Even this is gonna make a finished product.
this is going to make a finished product. Yeah, you could start like an Etsy store or a little side hustle making some gauge pods, you know. Okay, so we're getting ready to assemble everything. The Speedhut gauges, the restored dash, the 3D printed bits. Essentially, the gauge fits into like this backing plate, and then the bezel goes over it like that, and then it uses little screws. And then this is actually a factory Dodson part, and that will screw onto the part that we screw onto the other part, which the gauge sits in.
Yep. So then this will just tuck in from the back and get mounted to the pre-existing brackets that are in there.
And then we're not really going to show you the big ones because this is more like this cone slides in this way, And so all we've done is make this this big puck pretty much that screws into these cones, and then the back of this will screw in to that bracket right there. So that's how that works. These were much simpler than these ones. Okay, so here's an assembled pod with the Speedhut gauge in it. Factory, all the 3D stuff, and then that's just gonna come right up to the back here. I'm gonna hold this so it doesn't fall over.
Yep. And then this will go like that. It'll mount through there.
And these are loose and floppy right now.
Yeah.
Because you can adjust like the angle of the gauge and stuff like that with the factory setup. All right, so we're just going to install these because it's not that exciting, and then we'll cut to when they're all in and show you how it's looking. All right, boys, this is looking so sick because in the past we never had matching gauges, and in the past we never actually took this much time to put them in, right? All right, so what you're seeing right here, this lip, that's from the 3D printer. That's part of the bezel that we made that mounts into the stock location. And then these ones, you can't really see anything that the 3D printer made because that's just not the way that they're mounted, but they don't need to because those look a lot, they look pretty close to how Datsun did them out of the factory. And you know, all the time and sanding and stuff like that, worth the investment. Just so happy with this. It's gonna really make the interior of the car just so much better to be in.
All right, now we're gonna wanna get into how we wire up all of these gauges to the rest of the car. Starting with the water temp. It's an 8th MPT, and our stock location actually was an 8th MPT. So I just simply removed the old one and put the new one in there. All right, moving on to the next sensor that we need to install. It's gonna be the oil pressure gauge. In our particular situation where the old oil pressure gauge would have gone, we're now using this line for this anti-jerk. So on this banjo right here, we've just tapped the end of it to 8th MPT. You could also just buy banjo bolts with 8th MPT taps on them already, but we had a lathe and didn't want to wait, so we did it that way. So now I'm just gonna put this in here and that'll be the oil pressure sensor. All right, moving on to the EGT gauge. We have our EGT sensor right here. It comes with a weld-on bung. We're not gonna need that because our intake manifold has ports for it already. So I just gotta take this and put that in the intake manifold, and then that's as easy as it is just putting this in. All right, with the MPT bung in the manifold, we can now put the probe in. It's got a little compression fitting in there, so once we tighten this down, slide it in as far as it'll go, smash that compression fitting, and it should be a leak-proof seal. All right, so the last sensor that we need to install for our Speedhut setup is gonna be the boost sensor. Here it is right here. It's actually the exact same sensor as the oil pressure down there. It's just a generic 100 PSI pressure sensor. It's got an 8th MPT right here, and then it's got the plugins to hook directly to the boost gauge. It comes with a hosed barb end that you can put on right here, just screw it on there, and then you can plug this into any one of your vacuum lines that is reading boost. But since this is a custom application, we have everything apart already. We have right here our up tube that floats right about here, and it connects to the intake manifold. And what we've done is we had a hose barb here before. We just cut that off, drilled it out, and put an 8th MPT bung right there. So all we gotta do is we just gotta screw the sensor onto here. We'll obviously put some pipe dope in there and tighten it down all the way first. But then we just install this, hook up the provided wires, goes direct to the boost gauge, and we're good to go. So we actually have 2 more gauges in the Speedhut suite that have 3 more functions. However, these guys don't require any sensors that come provided with the Speedhut. We have the RPM gauge, which has a lot of different ways to be run. They send you detailed instructions with how all of that works in our specific application. Since we have a diesel, we actually have a sensor that's on the alternator, and it mimics what an ECU would be putting out. So we're gonna go by the ECU instructions here. I believe it's 4 pulses per revolution. So we should just be able to do that up and program the RPMs to, you know, read correctly with that. Up next, we have the speedometer and the fuel gauge. This speedometer is a GPS speedometer, so it actually uses a little antenna. They suggest putting it as high as possible to avoid interruptions. But some people have success putting it in the dash and everything like that. It's just your reliability goes down the further down into the car you bring it. And if you start putting it under stuff, you know, you can get some mixed up signals. And finally, there's a fuel level, and that's simply just 2 wires that go to your, your stock fuel setup. So we already have a sensor in there with a positive and a negative. We're just gonna hook that up to that, and that should read correctly. The other cool thing about it is it has blinker indicators and high beam indicators. Pretty self-explanatory how those are set up. You just wire them into the circuit and they do their thing. Now with all the sensors installed, that's really just plug and play. Speedhut comes with all the wires that hook up right up to those. So that just comes in, goes to the back, and everything is good to go. Now for the dash wiring and light wiring, Speedhut is actually really awesome in the way that they do this. So if you buy, like 3 gauges, 5 gauges, 8 gauges, they'll send you the appropriate amount of coupling right here. So this is the main powers and ground and everything like that with multiple attachments. So it's just gonna chain to the back of all these gauges. And then same thing with the lighting situation. Comes with a little capacitor, a gang wire that plugs into the back of them, and a dimmer adjustment knob.
Which we have the perfect spot for.
Yep, we're gonna put it right there, and then we're also gonna install push to start.
Yes, a cool, like, anodized red one.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, so we got them all ganged together because we do want, for, thumbnail and like work areas as well purposes, we want to get the backlight and the glow at night stuff tested. It's also easier to diagnose wiring problems like this than it would be upside down under the dash of the car. So Devin's got this little science experiment going back down here with this battery.
Yeah, this is just testing purposes, and we actually won't need to diagnose anything because this is a pre-made thing. I didn't make it, so it should work. But we just have the main power, that's the red wire. Then we have the dash lighting one, which will enable the night mode, essentially, which just means when your lights are on. And then we got the ground, so let's see what they look like.
3, 2, 1.
Everything about you.
Pretty cool. So we got them all. Oh, we're out of gas, dude, or diesel, I should say. We got everything but the tach to glow in blue with the red dial, and then the tach itself has a white needle and a white backlight. That's how we did that. We wanted to differentiate the tach because we wanted to pretend like we're Europeans. But if you can't tell, this has made a little bit of progress from the last time that you've seen it. We are filming simultaneously the Making It Run Again video. So it's not gonna be another week and a half. This one should come out fairly soon because we have a lot of the work done.
It might be another week and a half, but we're working.
Yeah, we wanna make it nice this time, guys. We don't wanna, it's got this stupid purple wrap, and I'm surprised a bunch of paint just didn't rip off. We're doing this car we're doing it good. We're not doing it dirty. We're doing it good. You want to pull up a winner for this video's giveaway? Because that's all we have left to do. If you guys aren't familiar with the channel, we give away products from boostedshades.com, which is also the best way to support us. If you don't win anything, it would still make us pretty pumped if you checked out boostedshades.com.
All right, this video's winner is James McDonald.
All right, James, you can hit us up at Team Boosted at boostedshades.com or through any of our social media accounts. We'll get back to you and ship you something. If you guys want to win, all you got to do is hit the like button, leave a comment. The comment could be anything, but we ask you guys stuff at the end of the videos, and make sure you're subscribed. This video's question, do y'all think that dashboard's gonna crack?
I think it's good. I think we did it justice.
Evan from Throttle came over and he was explaining that they restored a dashboard in a similar way, maybe not exactly the same, but one afternoon out in the sun for a long time, it did end up cracking. So I'm curious to see if our methods prove to be durable, but leave in the comments whether you think it's gonna last or not, and that's all you gotta do.
Yeah, I definitely want to at least get one of those window reflecting things. So
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
sunlight,
Yeah.
But as always, guys, thanks for watching.
About you.